Hi, my name's Chris Wilson, and I'm from Grinding Gear Games. I'm the managing director and on the Path of Exile project.
So Chris, what are you showing new here with Atlas of Worlds?
So this is the Atlas of Worlds itself from our new Path of Exile expansion that's coming out next month. And basically it's a completely revamped Path of Exile endgame. So previously there were maps that you play that are randomly generated with random mods as you explore the endgame, but now this has been codified onto the Atlas itself. Now, there are various story reasons why this atlas exists that the player will find out as he explores it and find out more about the entity that created all of the maps, and eventually get to face that entity in battle. But from the player's point of view, rather than playing random maps which randomly yield another one that's unrelated, we now have them laid out on the atlas, which is basically an interconnected set of 100 maps. That's an increase of 50% from the amount we had in the game previously. And so players start, when they finish the final difficulty level in the game, they start at various points around the outside, and they can work inwards towards the center here, where there are these 4 penultimate fights with the Guardians of the Void themselves, the Chimera, the Hydra, the Minotaur, and the Phoenix fights.
So talk about each levels of the map have different difficulty levels.
That's right. So there are 16 different tiers of the maps in here, and they're loosely codified into 3 sets. There are the white maps, the yellow maps, and the red maps, and these get a lot harder as you progress through. So it's a similar system to how we had before, but now the map drops are arranged so that you get maps that are locally similar on the tree. So for example, if you start out in the desert area here, which is relatively easy, you're finding maps themed throughout the desert and the oasis and so on. And as you progress through to this graveyard, you're finding maps that are associated there. Now, various maps here can drop specific items to those areas, so it means that rather than rushing through the low-level ones to try to get to the end game, the highest maps, now players have a reason to actually grind specific areas because there are items they're looking for, and they can even upgrade these maps to find higher-level versions of those items.
So talk about, you can also mod the levels too, talk a little detail about that.
Sure, so traditionally in Path of Exile you can roll random mods on the maps, but now that they're laid out in a diagram like this, it's possible to actually apply mods to areas of the atlas itself. So for example, if you're playing in this graveyard area to farm for a specific type of item, it's possible to use a cartographer's sextant on here on a specific map that creates a circle around it of areas that are affected by that random mod. So for example, if I'm lucky and I roll map bosses drop 1 additional unique item, then for the next 5 maps I run within that circle, there's an additional unique item, and my friends can join me going through my map device to play that map too. And you can overlap these mods, so if you find a really dense area, you can put potentially 4 or 5 mods on them, so that means that when you play those maps, you're getting a ton of return.
So talk about some of the random modifications and stuff bosses and enemies get in these different maps that make them more challenging and harder.
So the map mods that you get affect both the monsters in the map and also the bosses. And on the topic of bosses, we've added 19 new fights, including some really big ones in the center here. The mods, in addition to the ones that already exist in the Path of Exile core game that make the maps more challenging, they add extra damage and various damage types, or mods that make it difficult for players to regenerate life or mana or other things. We've also added the random ones, which enable you to... You can think of it as a risk versus return thing. They make the maps more difficult in various ways while giving you more return. Now, the correct way to play these is to find ones that don't necessarily cause a problem for your character. So for example, if there's a mod that says 40% additional cold resistance for the monsters, now if you're a cold character, that's really bad news. You want to get rid of that map, trade it to someone else. But if you're a fire character, this adds no additional difficulty, but does increase the return because you're getting a bonus from it.
Can you talk about some of the changes you've made to the league?
Sure, so every 3 months we release a new league, and this Atlas of Worlds expansion comes with a league called Essence. And Essence is a very interesting league because you encounter these groups of monsters that are trapped, kind of like in crystals, so a pack of monsters, and they're trapped by a specific type of essence. Now there are 25 essences in this league that you can find in terms of different flavors. For example, there's the essence of woe, essence of suffering, essence of greed, essence of anger, and so on. And they all cause different things to occur when you fight the monsters. So for example, if you find an essence of woe trapping a group of monsters, then upon opening the monsters up and cracking the ice, as it were, you get the ability to have a fight against them where they're using whatever property is that essence yields, which might be like large lightning balls that fall to the ground to create shocked ground. Upon killing the monsters, you get the ability to take that essence for yourself. Now this essence is a crafting item, a lot like the Orb of Alchemy in Path of Exile, but it guarantees that when you upgrade an item with it, you're going to get a specific mod that essence has. For example, the Essence of Greed guarantees a life roll on an armor piece, and some of these life rolls are higher than ones that are possible elsewhere in the game. It's also possible to get essences for a process of corruption, which can have very random outcomes, and if you're lucky and you get a really top tier essence, you have the ability to add special unique properties to items that previously weren't available on rare items in Path of Exile.
Can you talk about some of the new items as well, some of the major changes returning Path of Exile players will see in this expansion?
So in terms of items, we've got a lot. I mean, that's basically what Path of Exile is about. So there's a ton of new base types that can be found specifically in various areas of the Atlas. We've got tons of new unique items, some of which are home to the Atlas, many of which items are designed by the supporters of Path of Exile themselves. Those that have purchased high-level supporter packs have worked with us to add items to the game. In addition, the Essence League has, I believe, counting all of the types of essences and power levels, a number of mods in them. There's over 1,000 distinct numeric types of mods that are possible on items. There's a lot of stuff to do with items in this league, and if you like crafting, you'll like it.
And when does Path of Exile Atlas of Worlds come out?
Comes out September 2nd, 2016.